Today, I want to talk about who Dane really was in You Season 5 and what his final fate says about both Joe and Bronte. In the aftermath of Joe successfully rehabilitating his image online after being catfished and exposed as a murderer, the internet has turned on Bronte and Joe finds that a man named Dane has tracked her down with the intention of abducting her. Joe interrupts Dane's plan and cages him, later offering for Bronte to end his story however she chooses. While she decides to let him go, Dane doesn't survive the night as Joe tracks him down and kills him anyway. So why did Joe give Bronte a choice in the first place? What does Dane's behavior in the cage reveal about Joe himself? And why did Joe follow Dane after Bronte chose to spare him? Let's talk about it. While Joe starts his TikTok interview proclaiming that Louise was the biggest regret of his life, prompting her to text him that she covered for him, he changes it up after the break and announces his love for her. After the interview, Bronte doesn't come running back, so Joe ruminates in his apartment, wondering where she could be. On the surface, he's concerned for her safety when he finds that the internet has turned on her and an anonymous user has tracked her down. But as Joe uses Dane's abduction of Louise as an excuse to kidnap her himself, he breaks her ankle to prevent her from leaving once she wakes up. At this point in time, Joe is unsure of their story potential and whether she'll play along or he'll have to write her off. And while he waits to find out, he cages Dane, functionally caging his own violent misogyny and desire to hurt Bronte for daring to target him in the first place. Dane wanted to kidnap and harm Bronte because he characterized her as the kind of woman that he hated based on the viral narrative that she framed Joe. He supposedly believed that she was an evil, manipulative woman while planning to trap her by exploiting her kindness. This plan of Dane's reveals a contradiction. He claims to think Bronte is one thing, while somewhere knowing she isn't all bad, as his plan relies on her readily helping him instead of just walking by like his evil idea of her likely would. As Dane is hidden away in the cage when Bronte wakes up, allowing Joe to tread carefully and suss out things narratively, he prompts her to confess to the truth and extends the opening for a new chapter over breakfast when he asks her for a secret, leading Louise to reveal that she once considered relieving her mother of her pain with a quiet death, giving her too much morphine but didn't pull the trigger. This reveals that Louise isn't willing to author the end of somebody's real life. But Joe disregards this disclosure as he gleefully leads Louise to the basement to offer up Dane, the man who originally targeted her for the kind of violence Joe will eventually do to her when she tries to leave him. Joe explains that a life with him means nobody will ever hurt her again after he just broke her ankle last night and will be attempting to strangle her and drown her in just 2 episodes. And he offers for Bronte to dictate Dane's fate, conveniently trying to compel her into complicity to strengthen his control over her, knowing it's harder for her to leave if she co-signs his crimes. She spends the day with Dane, tolerating his outbursts spewing sexualized insults, and once he tires himself out, she extends her signature radical empathy to see past his anger and misogyny and offer compassionate understanding when he breaks down emotionally and opens up about his mother. For a moment, it seems like Dane might have learned something from his experience in the cage being forced to interact with Louise, as he apologizes for attacking her and admits that she isn't so bad. But when he continues and says that he still plans to target females who really deserve it, Bronte pushes back, and he reverts right back to his misogynistic anger, telling her not to get loud with him and calling her a bitch. The reality here is that Dane previously justified his targeting of Bronte by deciding that she deserved it, and then he was forced to sit and talk with her and he realized that she wasn't what he distantly perceived her to be. As long as he sees her as a real person, or as short as he does, he can understand that she doesn't deserve the violence he planned to commit, and because he still has the desire to do it, he has to live with the worldview that there are women who deserve it. Louise challenges Dane, telling him nobody deserves that violence and remarking that her friend was murdered by an angry, fragile shitheel like him, truly meaning Joe, as they're two sides of the same coin. Joe faux idealizes women, trying to force them into a role that mischaracterizes them because they're real people, not fictional characters. And when they stray from his narrative or try to leave him exerting their own autonomy, he decides they deserve that violence. While Joe is handling Maddie and Harrison, he sees that Bronte hasn't let Dane go and optimistically believes that means she knows what he deserves and will let Joe kill him. But when he checks back later, he realizes that Bronte did let him go and believes that she left, so he concludes that she isn't the one and he'll deal with her later. In this moment, Joe plans to kill her. He believes that she didn't follow the narrative he laid out and therefore she's not game for what he has in mind, and it's time to discard this draft and start the story anew. Then he notices she actually stayed and rushes back, eager to see where this is heading, and Bronte offers Joe honesty and an exercise in trust. She explains that she let Dane go because he can't protect protect her from every shitty guy, and it's enough for her that he feels so strongly that he would kill for her. But she doesn't need him to, and chose to release Dane because she really needs autonomy. Joe again disregards the substance of what Bronte just said to track down Dane and murder him anyway. As he does this, Joe twists Bronte's acceptance of his desire to kill for her as acceptance to do as he pleases because she won't leave him, which is not what she said. In reality, Joe caging Dane and offering him for Bronte to decide his fate is really a cover for Joe to decide Bronte's. The prompt is a test to see if Bronte will play along with Joe's increasingly sadistic desires. Luckily, she finds a narrative forward utilizing what she knows about Joe to avoid succumbing to the violence he's asking her to take part in. The situation through episode 8 is a look at Joe's real disregard for the woman he proclaims to love and how disingenuous he can convincingly be. Joe repeatedly flip-flops through the situation on whether Bronte is the one or not. Back in the TikTok interview, Joe switches between Louise being his biggest regret and Bronte being the love of his life after reading one text message during a short break. He wonders where she is and why she hasn't reached out since the live stream, and deep down he's angry at her for putting him through this if she's not willing to step up and play her part. He looks online to try and track her down, and luckily through somebody else targeting her, he has the chance to frame the narrative like he's saving her. Joe says, "Wherever things stand between us, I can't let you get hurt." Damn it, Bronte. Note that he says Bronte, specifically. She'll always be Bronte to me. The potential character of Bronte that this woman might still be willing to play, he can't let her get hurt, and he can't let her get away. And to be sure that he has time to convince her, or to slow her down in case she can't be convinced, Joe breaks Bronte's ankle. The woman that he is supposedly protecting and saving from a bad and violent man, he breaks her ankle on purpose while she's unconscious and then handcuffs her to a bed. It's different from what Dane was going to do. Dane was going to abduct a woman off of a street and tie her up in his van, driving her off to do who knows what kind of violence to her. What Joe does is different. Well, in this season. From season 1 it's the same, but this time, Joe abducts a woman off of the street and restrains her in his apartment to do who knows what kind of violence to her, depending on her reaction to being kidnapped. Wait, maybe it's not different. Interesting. Louise extends empathy to Dane and tries to understand him, ultimately realizing that he's just an angry piece of shit who wants to hurt people, so he looks for an excuse to justify doing so. That sounds kind of familiar. Faced with the decision to end a life, not out of compassion but out of forced complicity, Bronte remained true to her character and rode a way out of the situation, trying to get through to Joe that she accepts him for how he feels about her, not for proving his love through killing. Joe then remains true to his own character and heads off to take a life that isn't his to end, twisting Bronte's words to make it seem okay and indicating once again that he hasn't changed or learned anything despite any real or feigned emotion or connection of seemingly deep understanding. In the end, as Joe is in the position for Bronte to decide his fate, she can draw on her experience with Dane, gaining a genuine understanding from it as she treated him like a real person, and realize that letting Joe go means he goes on to target another victim and the cycle needs to end with her. Joe, true to his character, tries to override Louise's decision one final time, lunging to grab the gun from her hands and kill himself before the police close in, echoing his desire to kill Dane, knowing the kind of monster he is. Joe often recognized predatory and violent behaviors in other people because he used it as a justification to target them for his own violence. Dane has the same desire within him, but he picks his targets a little differently. He's a different version of the same beast, giving the viewer room to consider why they might view him less sympathetically than Joe and to understand Joe better through him as his caged misogyny and mommy issues. Dane was a lot of things. A threat to Louise, an opportunity for Joe to save her, a test to see if she would comply and be brought to the dark side, an opening for Louise to once again flip the script on Joe and steer them into a new trope, and another example of Joe's disingenuous choices and false promises. But mostly, he was just the go-home gamer girl guy from that Law & Order episode. And he brings the same energy, so he was definitely the right guy for the role. Great casting.